Welcome to Post Basic BSc Nursing students who are enrolled in RAK College of Nursing. I am going to take session on planning of organizing nursing services and planning of nursing educational services for the students. We will be covering BNS 110 Block 2 Unit 1 and 3. Before we go to the block, it is important just to review what is management. Management, what we have studied earlier, is getting the things done through people. And management principles and elements are applicable at home, workplace, college, institution, hospital, or we can say in simple terms, wherever we work. First, I will request Ms. Sukriti to explain us about the principles of management. Welcome Ms. Sukriti to this session. I hope the principles will be clear to you. Then you will be able to understand basic elements also clearly.
Thank you and good afternoon to everyone. So talking about the principles of management, Henry Fayol gave 14 principles of management. What are these 14 principles? Number 1, there is division of work. That means that every employee in the organization has their own specialization and they should perform the work for which they are specialized. For example, in a hospital, we have doctors, we have paramedicals, we have nurses who have their own competencies and perform work accordingly, which also leads to increase in efficiency of the work performed. Secondly, we have authority and responsibility. The managers or administrators in the organization have certain authority to give instructions to their subordinates and staff. And also comes with this certain responsibility, which means that this authority should be used judiciously and fairly. No misuse should be done. Like a medical superintendent has the authority to give instructions and orders to the nursing superintendent. Thirdly, we have discipline. That means that in an organization, there are set rules and principles which have to be followed. These rules are laid down clearly, communicated to all the staff members, and they should be fair rules. And we have disciplinary committees also, which ensure that this discipline is obeyed by each and every member in the organization. Like we have biometric system in a lot of organizations that ensures that every staff member follows the rules that are defined regarding time. Fourth, we have unity of command. That means every person should be receiving instructions or orders from only one supervisor or one manager. Like a nursing officer should not receive the command from senior nursing officer and from ANS both. He should only receive from one person so that no confusion is there. Fifth, we have unity of direction, which means that one group which is trying to achieve a certain objective, that they should follow one same plan. There should be no disharmony between all the members of the groups.
This I will like to say in simple terms that every hospital should have a one plan which is made by under the chairmanship of medical superintendent, and they involve nursing superintendent, all the deputy nursing superintendent, DMS, additional MS, all the important people or the planning committee is there in the hospital. They make a plan which is followed by all the departments.
Then sixth principle is subordination of individual interest to the general interest. That means no one individual person's interest or benefits can override or be above the interest or benefits of the organization as a whole. Seventh comes remuneration, which means compensation, that is the payment for the services that a staff member renders to the organization. This includes both financial payment and non-financial benefits also. This should be fair the remuneration should be fair to the employees and to the employer as well. Then comes centralization and decentralization. What it means is how much, where the power rests to take decisions in an organization. And so for example, in emergency situations, like we have COVID-19 going on right now, the organizations follow more centralized model. That means the power to take decision rests more with one person or one authority. And otherwise, in routine tasks and routine days, there is more decentralization. That is, overall objectives are communicated and then the power to take decision rests with the department heads or the unit heads. The balance between both should be maintained. Then we have scalar chain, which is the 9th principle. It means that every employee or every staff member should be clear about what the hierarchy is in the organization, what is the chain of command, where I as a staff member sit in this hierarchy, and what are my roles and responsibilities accordingly. Then 11th principle is equity, which means as a manager or administrator, I should treat every staff member fairly and in a just and an unbiased manner. This also helps to get increased loyalty from the staff members. 12th is stability of the tenure. That is, I should manage as a manager or administrator, I should manage in a way that the attrition rates go down. That means my staff should not be leaving the job very frequently, because otherwise the cost will go high, because hiring cost and then training somebody is a increased cost.
I will like to give here the example, like in the private sector what is happening, because nurses are not getting good pay and the welfare facilities are very less, and whenever there is a vacancy from outside India, most of the hospital nurses leave. So the stability of tenure of staff is very less, and indirectly there is a high cost to the hospital.
Yes. Then 13th principle is initiative. That means a staff member should be allowed to take initiative and perform certain activities on their own within the boundaries of discipline. This also helps them to feel a pride in their job and increases productivity. And last 14th principle is esprit de corps, which is a term which means teamwork and unity should be there among all of the members.
I hope, thank you Sukriti, very nicely you have explained all the principles. I hope these principles are clear to all the students. In the last session we have discussed in brief about the functions of the management. And the first primary function of management is planning. So planning means setting objectives and forming a implementation plan which will help to achieve the objectives. That means what is to be done and how is to be done is defined in this plan. Planning is where we are and where we have to go in the future. To bridge this gap, these alternative actions are being made. We have discussed about the steps in the planning process, which I will just tell you in brief. That is setting organizational goals and objectives, developing a planning premises, that is assumptions are being taken into considerations, identify alternative course of action, evaluate all the course of actions, select one and then set objectives, formulate plan, implement it, follow up and evaluate. These were some of the steps of the planning. Before we go further, I will request again Ms. Sukriti to explain us what is the definition, limitations and importance of planning.
Sure. So like we mentioned, planning makes this process of deciding on a lot of courses of actions and picking one course of action that we want to follow to achieve certain objectives in future is called as planning. It is a very important process because this is the first process and also it gives the framework that all the other processes of management follow. So when we organize, when we control, when we direct, all of them will be related to or are based on the planning process. Talking about importance, first and foremost, it is very important because it sets the objectives of an organization which we want to achieve. It gives certain targets and results that we want to accomplish. Then also it gives the direction that where we want to go as an organization, and also this gives a direction to all individual staff members that where they should be putting their effort so that collectively organization can move towards the desired objectives. Third, it reduces risk of uncertainty about future because we are trying to predict the future and also deciding what may happen and what we want to do in terms of what if that situation happens, what we will do. So that uncertainty about future, that risk is mitigated. Fourthly, it helps us to take an informed decision because this is an intellectual process. When we do planning, we do not randomly make a plan. We first sit and we evaluate the facts. We take a picture of where we are in the present. We make estimates about the future, the basis on the news, the data and the certain facts and figures. So the decision is not taken randomly or out of the blue. It is a very informed decision. One more thing is when we are taking informed decision, the organization also looks internally. That is, it does a SWOT analysis. An organization looks at its own strengths, its weaknesses, what are the opportunities that may come up, and what are the threats. It takes note of all of these things and then only make certain decisions. Fifth, planning is very important because it helps us to use our resources very efficiently. Because resources are very limited, time is limited, money is limited, the number of employees we have is limited. So when we plan properly, it makes sure that wastage is reduced, duplication of efforts does not happen. And what it does is it leads to better quality of work, lower cost and higher efficiency. And sixth, it also provides a basis of control and monitoring. When we move on to the controlling stage, we see where we are, what is the actual performance, and we measure it against what we had planned to achieve. So it gives a benchmark for controlling and monitoring. However, planning also comes with its limitations. Number one limitation is we cannot predict everything that may happen in the future. The external environment is out of our control. For example, government policies may change, rules, regulations may change, economic scenario may change.
Even I would like to say here the need has changed. Like suddenly the COVID has come. Most of the institutions have changed their plan, what they wanted to, irrespective. It is a hospital, it is a teaching institution, even teaching institutions, how to reach the students so that they do not waste their time. In the hospital, mainly it is providing the care to the COVID patient, but on the other hand, they are thinking how to provide care to the vulnerable groups also. So the need has changed, the plan has changed over time.
Yes. Then another limitation is an organization may spend too much time planning, which leads to higher cost also and leaves us with less time for execution of plans. And lastly, it may also lead to a slowed down decision making because when we have a defined authority in an organization, a middle level or first level manager cannot change the objectives or plans. He must first go to the top level managers, and so the decision would be slowed down.
Even I think the creativity and innovation of the middle and the supervisory level leaders also slows down because they have to follow the fixed plan what they made. So in this way we have discussed about the importance and limitations. Now there are some types of plan which I will just list down some of the plans. There are two main types of plan: single use plan and standing plans. Single use plans are made for one time, which to achieve certain objectives. They are strategies, programs, objectives and budget. And standing plans are for over time they are being taken into consideration and they are being revised maybe after 5 years, like policies, procedures, methods and rules. So these were some types of plan. There are types of planning. You should understand what is the difference between plan and planning. Plans are single use and standing plans. But plannings are operational planning, strategic planning and long range planning. I will request Ms. Sukriti to explain us types of planning.
When we talk about types of planning, first of all, there is a corporate plan, which is a very broad plan in terms of scope, which is made by the top level of managers, and it gives a framework that what objectives we want to achieve. For example, if a hospital may want to start a new facility or may want to expand and open up a new branch somewhere else in some new country or a city, these are corporate plans. Followed by them are operational plans, which are more detailed and more specific than the corporate plans. The operational plans take the ideas, take the objectives that were set in the corporate plan and then say that okay, we should do these and these actions to achieve those objectives. They are made at a department level and they are also called action plans. For achieving the operational plans, it is possible that many departments may need to come together and work together, and so interdepartmental conflict may also happen at this stage, at this level. So that also needs to be maintained and taken care of. And also, as per the operational plans, the allocation of resources is done to the different departments.
Yeah, anything can you give one example? Mostly, like I think in the government we have long range plan that is for 5 years.
Yes,
we can say. I think what I understood, I think students will also know. They know about 5-year plans. Then strategic planning is for
the changing environment.
Yes. Like today what we are doing for the COVID is that will come in the strategic planning.
Yes,
it will come in the strategic planning. And operational planning is done at the middle and the first level.
Yes.
So I think very nicely with the examples it is being explained the types of planning. So let us come to objectives. Planning, nursing care and educational activities for your students which are related to your 2 units. First, what are objectives? Objectives are overall goals or objectives what we want to achieve, the outcomes which are measurable, because at the end how you will see that you are able to achieve something, because unless your objectives are measurable, then only you can see that you are able, your organization is able to achieve the objectives. Objectives are set for the patient care, for education of the staff or the students, for administration of nursing department, for conducting research. In your unit, they are divided into these 4 main aspects. Patient care is it is to provide quality need-based patient care within the limited resources what are available, to carry out the treatment and assist the doctor whenever required, to provide 24 hours into 7 care in all the 3 shifts by the nursing care to all the patients in all the departments, to provide care of the patient during emergencies, disasters, to treat patient with respect and dignity, that is very important, to maintain confidentiality and privacy of the information and diagnosis of the patient, then to monitor and evaluate the nursing care and to improve the satisfaction of the patient and the employees. These can be the broad objectives of nursing care department for the patient care. Then objectives in relation to education. To organize, plan, induction and orientation training for the nursing staff. To provide continuous staff development opportunities and activities so that your nurses are professionally developed and update their knowledge and skill. Then objectives related to administration. To ensure good management practices are followed by your nursing department. Regular monitoring, supervision and evaluation is done. Regular meetings are conducted with various committees. Maintenance of supplies, equipment and the records, and the care is provided within the budget what is provided to the nursing department. Then collective decision is taken, involve all the stakeholders, nursing sisters, ANS, DNS and nursing superintendent should take into consideration. Then cost effective care, that is the most important thing. Then objective related to research. Why it is important? Because objectives related to research, because you have to give evidence-based care, evidence-based training to the staff, evidence-based administrative decision is to be taken. That's why research activities are to be carried out, which is one of the little weak area. You are sitting in the hub of the hospital where you can conduct small research and create the evidence. So the future nurses, future administrators, you are there. You are learning all these things. I think when you will become administrators, you will take care of all these things. Then what are the objectives for educational institutions? It is to provide quality education to your students, which is need-based. What you want, what type of nurses you want in the future, keep in mind that. The factors which influence the planning of educational institutions are health policies, health needs and demands, nursing education, philosophy, need and type of nurses you required, level of nurses you required, number of nurses you required. These should be kept in mind. So, in this way, we have understood what are the objectives in the different areas while planning for all these services should be taken care of. There are some essential characteristics of nursing department. They are written philosophy and objectives. What do you mean by philosophy? Philosophy is what is the ideal, values, beliefs of your department. What type of care you want to give to your patients. Do you believe in quality? So all these things are included in the philosophy. Every nursing department in the hospital should have their document which specifies what is the philosophy and objectives of your nursing department. Then making a written plan. It can be a strategic plan, operational plan or a long-term plan which should be available and which should be shared with all the nurses in the hospital. Then policy and administrative manuals should be available. Most of the private hospitals nowadays have the procedure and the policy manuals or SOPs, even in some of the government hospitals, because NABH accreditation is going on. But it should be a mandatory requirement for all the hospitals to have a nursing department should have procedure and the policy manuals. Then budget, separate nursing head should be there with different subheads so that nursing department can plan and consume the budget. A financial training, management of finances, the training should be given to all the nurses. Then master staffing plan. It should be made how many staff are there, how they are posted and how they will be distributed. I will tell you in a little after some time about staffing in a brief. Then meetings and the committees. Meetings should be conducted regularly and various committees should be formed, and there should be a chairperson and a convener who will take care of all the meetings and take out the minutes. it's very important to take out the minutes and keep it a record and to share with all the members who are there and with the nursing superintendent. Then infrastructure, supplies and equipment should be available. Then written job description and job specification. That is very important. Here I will request Sukriti to explain about what do you mean by job description and what do you mean by job specification.
So a job description is a summary of what would be the tasks, what would be the roles or responsibilities that a person who might enter the organization at a particular position would be expected to perform. Versus that, a job specification is an overview of the experiences, the qualifications or the attributes or qualities in a person who might enter in the organization that the organization is looking for.
That means job specification is the broad requirement, what I understand, what a nurse should have. What job description is specifically, suppose they are working in a medical surgical department. So what will be their job description in that particular department?
Yes.
If they are working in an operation theatre or ICU, that job description should be different.
Yes.
So I think it is very nicely, it is being explained and clear. Then there should be a written personal policies should be there. I think a personal policies also I will request her to explain in a simple terms to you.
So a personal policy are defined rules or guidelines that give a direction or that govern the decision making when it comes to human resource situations. They are specified, well specified and should be documented so that when a situation comes up, same situation comes up with two people, there should be a same decision in both the cases so that the organization works in a fair and unbiased manner.
Yeah, I will like to give you example like you have leave policies, you have welfare policies, you have medical policy, reimbursement policy, LTC policy. So these are come under your personal policies because they are related to, as she has told, to human resource. You can go back and see to your institution, all the government, central government policies are being implemented in most of the institutions. Maybe state government may have little different variations. Then the essential characteristics of a good nursing department is they should maintain all the patient record, administrative records, staff record and other records very nicely. Good IPR and coordination should be maintained not within the nursing department but also with the co-professionals, and in-service education should be given to all the nurses. Then there should be a written policies for supervision, performance appraisal and nursing audit. So these are some of the characteristics. Before completing this, I will request Sukriti to explain us in what is supervision and what is performance appraisal.
So supervision means to oversee. That is, as the administrator, you would be overseeing the task performed by your subordinates with the aim of guiding them and keeping a track of what they are doing, so that you make sure that what is happening in accordance with the plans and as per the timelines defined, and to provide guidance if something goes wrong. And then performance appraisal is a process where, as an administrator, you evaluate the past performance of the staff members for achieving certain administrative purposes. These purposes can be, it could be one, it could be promotion or demotion of an employee. Two, it could be about transfers. That is, if you feel that the employee is not able to perform in one particular role, but he or she may be able to perform better in some other area, then you may transfer or place him in a different position. Then three, they may be to provide certain financial rewards to employees. That is, if there is good work done, you may give a certain bonus, or you may give certain financial incentives, or even non-financial incentives that you may give. And lastly, it is to provide counseling, coaching or guidance to the employee and give feedback on their work so that they can improve more and more.
Like in our government sector, your annual performance report is being filled by your senior. The processes in the government still remains, it is kept confidential. But I think in most of the private organizations and all over the world, the things are changing. It is being shared by the employer with the employee. What are their strong points, what are their weak points, so that they get a chance to improve themselves, and for their good points they are being appreciated. That is very important. So let us, I've told you, I will just give you in brief what is staffing. Staffing means putting people to right job, that is finding the right people for right job. Because as she has told you, there is a division of labor. Doctors will have their own work. In doctors also, specialists will do their own work. GDMOs will do their work. Same way, nurses will do their work, and paramedical will do their work. That's why when the staff is being recruited and selected, there are certain recruitment rules are being set. Certain qualifications are being taken into consideration. That is, what are the steps? That is, estimate the manpower first. A hospital, a nursing manager has to first estimate, what is my current position? What are the vacancies? If suppose my hospital want to expand in future, what type of nurses I need more? In which department I need more? What will be their qualification? If experience is required, what type of experience is required? Then recruitment is being done. Advertisement is being sent. Maybe internal employees can also apply, or employees, nurses from outside can also apply, internal and external recruitment. Then selection, there is a selection committee who selects by maybe written exam, interview or a skill test, depend upon the policy of an organization. Once they are selected, they are giving appointment letter and medical examination is being done. After that, when they join, the placement is being done and given a induction training. That's very important, to give a induction training. After that, on the job training is given to them, so that their skills and knowledge is updated, because they have trained in various different organizations. But your hospital want to attain certain level of competencies in your staff. So it's very important to give on the job training also. Or sometimes the new equipment or machine have come, you want them to learn. Then there is a career development and the promotional avenues are there. Then compensation and the welfare schemes for the employees, performance appraisal, and lastly the retention. So it starts from the recruitment till the retention. These are some of the important points in the staffing. Sukriti, would you like to add something in the staffing?
I think it is quite nicely covered. And the most important part is our manager should be very well aware of what are the skills that his team members are having, to ensure that staffing always remains proper. And staffing should not be thought of as a one-time job, that okay, I have seen the vacancies and I have recruited people, that is all. Then it is an ongoing process which happens daily. Then you have to make sure that everybody is, their skills are updated and the technologies keep changing, so everybody is at the right place continuously.
Thank you, Sukriti, very nicely explaining that what are the management principles and the various terms. So I think students are clear about it. Now I will tell you something about the essentials of planning educational activities for the students. First of all, I think you must have, I have shared the video of the DNA class where we have discussed all these aspects, and the one curriculum from INC. That must have given you a clear picture, but still I will give you the important features. That is, every educational institution like your nursing department have a philosophy and a objective. Philosophy of your nursing institution. Philosophy, irrespective you make for your hospital or for educational institution, it should be consensus with your parent body. Objectives are based on the philosophy of the educational institution or the hospital. Then there are certain objectives are set for the educational institution, which we have discussed also. The objectives are, what are the sources, which are the, that means society, what are the need, health department need, policies, health policy, then your own institution policies, what are the objectives which can be achieved and accepted by all the stakeholders. It should be taken care of. You have to take into consideration societal, health sector and your educational need and the students and the education system need also. So then organization of school and college of nursing. There are some controlling authorities. I think you know it is being controlled by the government institution like under central government, state government or local bodies. There are some autonomous bodies like AIM, IBHAS, then some private organization and voluntary organization. They are part of the governing bodies. Then there are certain academic councils, academic control, which is with the principal of College of Nursing or dean in the universities. They have to be a nursing personnel. What is the role of a governing body? Governing body mainly make a policy decisions, make a overall plan, place, see that the infrastructure, equipment, supplies, library, the hostel, administrative block, academic block, then the coordination with the hospital, with the community is in place so that students get a good experience. Then if new institution is to be made, they coordinate with the state government for NOC. Then they lay down all the recruitment rules, all the job responsibilities and descriptions, job descriptions for the principal and the teaching and other staff. They give the budget, they approve the budget also, because without budget no activity can be carried out. Then there is a support system which work in the organization. The policies are being made about the students policy, admission policy, how much fees is to be taken, what welfare activities to be given to the student. All these decisions are taken by the governing body. There are certain committees in college and school of nursing, like advisory committees is there, standing committees are there. Advisory board committee advises the principal to take decisions and implement the policies. Standing committees are like staff committee, curriculum committee, coordination committee, library committee, student welfare committee, student mess committee, student discipline committee, faculty committee. So these are some of the committees which are being formed in the school or college of nursing. And guidelines for the selection of the principal teachers are followed by whatever guidelines are given by the INC. So you can see in your syllabus what I have shared, what are the guidelines which INC gives. Then INC also gives the student admission criteria also, they are being followed by school and college of nursing. There are certain aspects related to student nurse administration, that is administration of students like admission policies. Curriculum details are being made, faculty responsibility year-wise is given, orientation program to the new students. Then students records are being maintained, health checkup of the students, hostel facilities and other welfare activities of the student. Why you want to give all these? Do you remember your days? You were given this orientation or you were provided these services? Try to recall it. You can write it very nicely and understand all these things, why these are required. Because you want students to complete the program successfully. They should develop a positive values and attitude towards the profession and professional characteristics. As a professional, they should have certain characteristics. Then strengthen their capabilities. Then able to adapt to the situations in the hospital where they are working, because they are away from the home. They have to adapt to the hostels and working in all settings, doing all suppose they complete the program. When they complete, they are able to work in all settings in the community or the hospital. Then admission to the student, admission of the students. If College of Nursing is there, it is being affiliated with some university, and School of Nursing, the council or the board is take decisions and make the policies. Then admission policies are terms of admission, advertisement, entrance examination, selection procedures. Then orientation, admission committee takes with the principal. Then orientation of new student. Why it is important? Because you want to welcome them. They are new to the system. First time they are coming out of their home after doing 10+2. They are away from the home. So they need psychological support. You want to reduce their anxiety. You want them to be aware of the physical facility, infrastructure, and what are the facilities available in the academic block. Who is the principal? Who are the teachers year-wise? If there is any problem, whom they can contact? Who are the administrative staff? Where they have to pay the fee? If they go to the hostel rules, their wardens, what are the timing of the mess? What are the visiting hours? If their visitor come, where they will sit? So all these informations are given during the orientation. So, and it is very important to give a physical round also to the students. So there are various records also are being maintained in School and College of Nursing, that is admission records, academic records, faculty, school records, finance records, whatever is related to the faculty, students, administration, research, or the other activities. Then there are hostel facilities. Already you know there are recreational facilities, dining hall facilities, the daily use, your water supply, electricity, safety of the students, what are the rules and regulation what student has to follow, what time they have to come back, what time they can come back if they are taking the pass, at the weekends for how many days they will get the pass. Then not using the heaters or other things in the rooms. There are certain things they have to take care of. And there are certain student welfare activities which are being taken care of, maintaining good health, good habits, so that they do not become sick during their training, because the training is very strenuous and they have to work in the hospital also, and they should not catch any infection. Therefore, regular health checkup, regular weight checkup of the students are carried out. And there is a teacher who is responsible for the health center also. Then guidance and counseling of the students. What is the difference between guidance and counseling? We will do in detail. There is one unit you have, but still I will tell you, guidance is assisting for day-to-day things. If they are not feeling well, if they are feeling low, if they are feeling homesick, not able to adjust in the hostel, not able to adjust with the roommate. So there are certain things you can guide them, you can give suggestions. Counseling is helping them to take decision. You will listen more. They will come out with their problems and come out with the solution also, because they have to see what are their resources and how they can solve their problem. And teacher has an important role to guide and counsel the student for their personal problems, academic problems, or if any problem in the adjustment also. Then the same way there is a faculty management, the same way you have a staffing steps are there, same will be adapted for the faculty management, for the recruitment, for the selection, for the promotion, for in-service education, career progression. Only the application will be different. What I have just told you, what were the components of the staffing will be applicable to the faculty management also. So these were some of the important components, and the last component is your curriculum administration. What is curriculum? Curriculum is series of planned educational activities which students go through with the help of a teacher. Have you seen your program guide, which includes full curriculum? What are the requirements? What courses you will go through? How many hours are there? How many practical components are there? How many pro courses are there? Then theory hours, practical hours, what all activities you will do, where you will do, who will evaluate. There is a formative evaluation, summative evaluation, your final exam, theory and practical. How many marks will be distributed? So this all contains is known as curriculum. It's a systemic arrangement of sum total of learning experiences planned by a school or college for a defined group of students to obtain the aims of a particular educational program. That means all these curriculums are different for your GNM, different for post basic, BSc, masters. Everyone will have a separate curriculum. And curriculum in simple term is the full course of study. All learning activities are planned and guided by the school or college, whether carried out inside the school, the theory, or outside in the clinical, hospital, or a community setting. It's an ongoing process, curriculum planning, because planning is done. Your learning experiences are theory classes and learning experience are being organized. Your rotation plan is being made, then they are implemented and evaluated. Because your college wants you to you get a learning experiences in a consolidated manner. You can correlate. You can integrate theory with the practice. You can integrate one subject with the other. Like you have learned nursing process for the patient in the first year. In the third year, when you learn nursing process applicable in the family or community, you can integrate your knowledge of first year of nursing process in the community health. Then maintaining continuity and sequence of learning. There is provide clinical experience and help under the supervision of a teacher. Then correlate and integrate theory and practice. Provide system of evaluation. What all things will be covered for your internal assessment and for your final assessment. So these were some of the components of your curriculum. If you have seen the curriculum what I have shared, I will just give you in nutshell. Curriculum is a course to be run for reaching the certain goals which are being set. Group of subjects or courses of studies are arranged in a particular sequence to achieve the objectives. Curriculum is what school happens to teach you in that specific program with certain objectives. There are theory and practical subjects. Teaching learning strategies are there. Learning experiences are there. And evaluation criteria are there. What are the factors that influence the curriculum development? Need of the learners, need of the society, health services, political, social, economic factors, changes in educational technology, teaching learning methods, environment, internal and external, budget, health situation, competencies of teachers, and the type of graduates you want. Here I will like Sukriti to share her experience as a student of this age, because I am a student of old age. She can tell what type of technologies nowadays teachers use for teaching.
So technological advancements in teaching, I think, have been a lot. Like we are right now also having this class via Facebook sessions, and a lot of other applications are being used nowadays. Zoom is being used, Google, a lot of Google applications are being used, Cisco WebEx is being used to conduct online classes. And also the kind of material sharing that has happened. Google Forms are used to take feedback of students, to collate data from the students by the teachers at all levels. So the technological spread in education has really increased and improved.
Thank you, Sukriti. I think students will appreciate this, and you have given a very good feedback that you are not finding much difference in the face-to-face teaching and this type of teaching. So in a nutshell, I will summarize what is components of curriculum. It has a philosophy, objectives of the program, guidelines for establishing school or college of nursing, physical facilities required, budget, faculty requirement, clinical facilities for the student, admission terms and conditions from the student, and your curriculum, which includes is duration of the courses, weeks available, vacation, how many weeks of vacation will be there, examination weeks, how many hours per week there will be classes, hours per academic year, then internship period, then courses of instruction year wise it is given, the subject, theory hours, practical hours, then your teacher learning objectives are set, content to be covered, hours, teaching learning activities, and what is the assessment method. Then clinical areas, what are the areas where you will go in the hospital, in the communities for all the specialities, how many hours or the weeks you will go, and what are the requirements a student has to fulfill. Summary and the total clinical experience. Then scheme of examination, year wise it is being given, how many the subjects, total marks, internal assessment, final assessment, and how much weightage is to be given for the internal and external, and what are the final examination guidelines. Why we are teaching you all these things? You must be wondering, we are working in a hospital, why I should know this? It's very important. Two things. Maybe some of you tomorrow after doing your masters or higher qualification will go to College of Nursing and School of Nursing. That is one thing. Second, when you are working in hospital, you are getting students who are coming to you for the experience. So you should know how the College and School of Nursing function, because the teachers will coordinate with you. Tomorrow you should not be blank if the students come. You can guide the students, you can guide the faculty, you can work in coordination with School and College of Nursing. That's why this information is very important. So in this nutshell, we have learned about planning and organizing patient care, planning and organizing activities for the student. I hope this session is clear to you. Still, I have shared the PowerPoint, YouTube session, and one curriculum PDF format from the INC. I hope you will go through all these things. Still, if you have any question, you can send in the WhatsApp group, and kindly give your feedback after this session. I thank Sukriti for giving her valuable time and explaining so nicely to us all the components. Thank you.